The topic today is overcoming life's challenges. Do you ever feel you're walking up a mountain, pushing a rock, or life is heavy, life is weighing you down? Well, today's topic, I actually am continuing with this book, the Book of Joy, because so challenges. We need challenges because challenges are what make life interesting, and overcoming them is what makes life meaningful. That's how we grow. So we need challenges, even if they're hard, even if it's a heavy, dark challenge. It helps us to grow by overcoming. So the Book of Joy, I went through these pillars of joy, qualities of mind and heart. But actually, another section in the book is about life's challenges. And so today I'm going to look at the challenge we all face with fear, stress, and anxiety. Fear, stress, anxiety. So I don't know, maybe right now you're feeling some fear, some stress or anxiety, but it's part of life. It's, all of us experience this. But how do we deal with it? So I'd like to read a story about Nelson Mandela, that he was flying in a small propeller plane with his bodyguard, Mike. And he was hidden behind his morning newspaper when he noticed that one propeller was not working. He leaned over and calmly told Mike, who informed the pilots. They were very aware of the problem, and they explained that emergency landing procedures were in place. When Mike explained the situation to Mandela, he nodded calmly and went back to reading his newspaper. Apparently, Mike, a tough guy, was trembling with fear, but only calmed by the image of Mandela, who looked unbothered by the fact that they might at any moment fall out of the sky. When they got back into the back of their bulletproof BMW and met at the airport, his bodyguard asked him about his flight. And then Mandela leaned forward, eyes wide open, and said, "Man, I was terrified up there." So he says this, he says, "I learned that courage was not the absence of fear, but the triumph over it. I felt fear myself more times than I can remember, but I hid it behind a mask of boldness. The brave man is not he who does not feel afraid, but he who conquers that fear." And I don't know how you feel about flying, if you feel fear of flying, but I remember once I was traveling back to England with my mother on an aeroplane, and then suddenly there's this boom and shake. And I have to say, I felt pretty frightened. But in front of my mother, I just had to be calm and pretend, yeah, everything's fine. So that's how we have to deal with it. Like as parents also, if there's some emergency and there's some panic, we need to be calm externally, even if we feel panic within. So here is a picture of a dark forest, and in one of my previous presentations I talked about the Dalai Lama and how when he was a child there was one part of where he lived he was afraid because there were stories of ghosts, but it was all in his imagination. There were no ghosts and nothing happened to him. But what about yourself? Are you afraid of being out in the forest at night by yourself? Actually, I don't feel so easy. But there are certain things maybe we are afraid of. For example, are you afraid of big dogs? I was attacked by a big dog once in America and bit my hand. So for a while after that, I like to stay away from dogs. And what about spiders, creepy crawlies? I quite like spiders, but if I lived in Australia, there are these poisonous, deadly spiders that could kill you. And so probably if I lived in Australia and saw a spider, I might feel fear. Strangers. When we're young, we're told, don't talk to strangers because you never know. And I wonder if that stays with us. in adult life that we kind of a bit wary of new people. Flying, that's another one that some people don't like to fly. Drowning. If as a child you almost drowned, maybe that fear stays with you. So when you're in water, it's hard. You're afraid of water because of a childhood memory, and maybe many of our fears are connected to some trauma that happened in childhood, and maybe we consciously forget about it, but it's still in our subconscious. And when that situation occurs, those feelings come up. What about fear of failure? Maybe we don't like to try new things in case we fail. Or, so that's another aspect. Maybe we feel not good enough, and we don't want people to know that we're not good at something, that we make mistakes. When I was teaching, one of the first things I told my new students was, please make mistakes, because that's how you learn. But actually, a lot of them were very shy, didn't want to speak in class because they're afraid of making mistakes. And it was not easy to try to influence them, just try it, because they were fearing that they'd make a mistake. Speaking in public. How many of you find that difficult to stand in front of a crowd of people and speak? For some people, it's easy. For others, petrifying. And again, that may go back to childhood, or maybe some, just a shyness. If you live in America, people are very free to speak up. When I was last time in Champyong, and we had Hundoke, the Americans were very keen to get up and read, but Europeans were not so enthusiastic. What about authority figures? Actually, if I look back to my childhood, and I'm going to talk about this soon, those authority figures, I think, have affected me, because whenever I am in a situation where I have an authority figure, I feel some distance. And I don't know if the word is fear, but I don't feel so comfortable, because now they're on a higher position than me. And it's to do with the fear of punishment, because when I was at school, corporal punishment, meaning that the teacher could punish you with a cane, or with a slipper, or with a ruler on the hands. And I think I had all three. But actually, in each of those cases, I didn't actually do anything wrong. I just got into trouble because I was in the wrong place at the wrong time, or it was just an innocent mistake. But in those days, there was that fear of punishment. And maybe that has stayed with me. The question is, do I do things out of fear of punishment? Yeah. And I come from a Christian background, and in the 1960s, every day in school we had Bible stories and so on. But within Christianity, there is this fear. When you go to spirit world, you either go to heaven or to hell. And if you've been bad, you go to hell. If you've been good, you go to heaven. So I suppose in the psyche of a child, that kind of images, pictures like this can be quite frightening. Kind of the idea that Satan will take you, you'll be punished for your sins. And of course, in religion, that fear definitely still exists within followers of different religions. And here we have a picture. If you're a good Christian, you believe in Jesus died for your sins, then the way is open for you to go to heaven. But for everybody else, especially when Christians talk about the second coming of Christ or the last days, then all the sinners, all the non-believers, they're going to go to hell, and a few will be saved. So I suppose we live in a Christian culture, and when we were children, at least for people of my age, I think the influence of the church was much stronger. And I'm not just trying to point out what's wrong, but for a child, you can feel fear that if you do wrong, you get punished. So therefore, you want to be good. So I wonder how many of us try to be good because we fear being punished. This is what Albert Einstein said. He said, if people are only good because they fear punishment and hope for reward, then we are a sorry lot indeed. So, but I think that that way of thinking definitely exists, and the question is, how much are we like that? And then another person, Alan Cohen, he wrote, "Love is heaven and fear is hell. Where you place your attention is where you live." So I suppose the opposite of fear is love. And so God is a God of love, so we should have nothing to fear. So when we go to spirit world, even if we haven't fulfilled our responsibilities, we should not fear the judgment of God. And I mean, even within our movement, we should be blessed. Let's say you're not blessed. So do we fear we will go to, be in a bad place? Or when I was a young member, I remember being told, if you leave the church, Satan will attack you, or Satan will get you. And then also there's this kind of Cain-Abel relationship. Cain, if Cain disunites with Abel, then Satan will invade. So I think within our movement, there are definitely some kind of images of like punishment because of fear. And I suppose at my age now, to me, God, there is no judgment. We judge ourselves, but God is a God of unconditional love. He's our parent. He suffers because we suffer. So I cannot imagine God wants to punish anyone. So it's a lot within ourselves and our fears. And this is a passage from the Bible. There is no fear in love, but perfect love casts out fear, for fear has to do with punishment. And whoever fears has not been perfected in love. Okay, so this topic is about fear, stress, and anxiety. And we are designed, when there is danger, when there is a threat, for our body to prepare itself to fight or to flee. And so there's a biological changes called the stress response. So cortisol and adrenaline course into our blood, preparing for us to fight or flee. The pupils dilate so we can see more clearly. The heart and breathing speed up, and the blood is diverted to the muscles. But all of this is a temporary experience. We're designed to be able to respond quickly when there is danger. The trouble is, in the modern lifestyle, if we experience stress over and over again, it can damage us physically and so on. So this is a picture of a lady, and steam is coming out of her ears, and she's trying to handle too many things at the same time. And I wonder if any of you can identify with this, not just if you're a woman, a mother, or anybody, because modern day stress is like, it doesn't just temporary, but it can be every day. And this comes from an unbalanced lifestyle. Like we're trying to do too many different things. And we're focusing too much, I would say, on external things we have to do, things that are not done. And also unrealistic expectations. If we have ambitions and we don't fulfill them, then we feel stress. So as a teacher, there were so many things we had to do. And it's like, it just became overwhelming. And in the back of my mind, I'm thinking, I need to do this, I haven't done that. Oh, and I need to do this. And all the demands is like unrealistic. And then I feel a lot of stress. And but it's not just in the job. I mean, within ourselves, if we have high expectations and we can't fulfill it, we feel frustration. So we should be more realistic. We live in an age which is probably just too independent. Historically, people relied upon each other more. But today, it's like we're expected to manage life by ourselves. And I mean, Stockholm is the city where the most number of people live alone. And so we live in this kind of individualistic culture where we're supposed to manage everything ourselves. But in traditional cultures, people were much more kind of collectively trying to deal with their stresses and challenges of life. It also, I think, is self-centered thinking, because if you're only focused on yourself, then whatever you're worrying about, thinking about, multiplies. But if you do something for the sake of others, if you're trying to help others, or you could think about their situation, then you don't focus so much on yours. Also, negative habits of mind. If you think, oh, I'm not good enough, I'm not, I'm kind of stupid, and I'm got a scatterbrain, and oh, I can't focus, I got ADHD, and it's like all this. It's kind of, I can't cope with things. So our negative habits of our mind kind of create this feeling of stress. And what about chronic stress? Would you like to know what the three symptoms of chronic stress are? Well, let's begin with this one. Fragmentation. It's like you're fragmented. It's like my mind's in the past, in the future. I'm thinking about this and about that. It's like I'm all over the place. I'm not at peace. And then I'm chasing time. Always looking at my watch and, got this to do, that to do. I mean, I noticed when I was working and get up in the morning, first I'm looking at my alarm clock, and as I'm getting ready, I'm looking at my watch, and it's like, I'm always chasing time. And finally, not present. You're not present because you're somewhere else. And that's why, if you are calm and living in the present, then all of these distractions and thoughts in your head kind of allow you to be here. No. Yes. Now, the telomere effect. So these are two researchers, Elizabeth Blackburn and Lisa Epple, and they have written a book called The Telomere Effect. And so the telomeres are the caps on the ends of your chromosomes. And they have discovered that long-term stress affects these caps. It actually shortens them, because the telomeres are very important for preventing illness or health, and also for longevity, for a long life. So if we have long-term stress, then it can affect our health and also our lifespan. And so this is kind of a scientific study. So beware. So what about some solutions to fear, stress, and anxiety? Well, first of all, we should make love and connection your priorities in life. So we're not here to make lots of money, to be powerful. We're not here to buy lots of things and just have a externally comfortable life and go on holidays and so on. We're here because we need to love others, and we need to experience love within ourselves. And that comes in our connection with others. So our relationships, whether it's our family, our friends, our co-workers, this should be our priority. If we focus on that, like in my work, what I enjoyed most of all, actually, with the relationship with the children and the relationship with the teachers. And there was a lot of humor. And so this is what life's about. It's the same in your family. We should focus on that. If our focus is on things out there, or the things we have to do, it's not going to help our stress levels. And of course, live in the present reality, the here and the now, because then our mind is untroubled by other things. So we need to work on that. Stop this chatter in our brain. And we should also, these two scientists discovered is that if you see stress not as a threat, but as a challenge, actually, then it makes it's kind of completely different. Then stress, it will not affect your health. It actually inspires you. And it's, being into acting. I'm a bit stressed before I go on, but that's good because I'm kind of alert and focused. So stress in itself is not bad. It's how we look at it. Yeah. And if we see it as a challenge, because then we can grow, then we can learn. So we shouldn't try to escape. Oh, I can't stand all this stress. Get away from it all. We should try to see, okay, maybe it's stressful, but I can learn from this. How can I deal with this? So that means, face your fears. Don't avoid them. In the same way that Nelson Mandela, he had to face his fears many times. And I think all of us, when we face our fear rather than avoiding them, those fears are reduced. If we avoid them, they don't go away. And think of others in a similar situation. If you have a particular worry or fear or anxiety about something, then think about other people who are in maybe the same situation or a worse situation. So it's always good to reflect and look beyond yourself. Okay. And make time to calm your mind. That's why we, as spiritually minded people of faith, that's why every day we know we have spiritual practices which are in all religions. So we have Hunduke, we have prayer, meditation, study. We need to make time to calm our mind. If I just get up in the morning and go, and I haven't centered myself, it makes a difference. So how are we going to calm our mind? There's something called the relaxation response. And this man, he's called Dr. Herbert Benson, and he wrote a book called The Relaxation Response, a simple meditative technique that will unlock your hidden asset and help you relieve inattention, deal more effectively with stress, lower blood pressure, improve your physical and emotional health. So let me tell you a bit about this book and Dr. Benson. He describes the scientific benefits of relaxation, explaining that regular practice of the relaxation response can be an effective treatment for a wide range of stress-related disorders. And he can be largely credited by demystifying meditation and helping to bring it into the mainstream by renaming meditation the relaxation response. His studies in the 1960s and 70s were able to show that meditation promotes better health, especially in individuals with hypertension. People who meditate regularly enjoy lower stress levels, increased well-being, and were even able to reduce their blood pressure levels and resting heart rate. The relaxation response is actually the opposite to the flight or fight or the stress response. And it can help turn off this fight or flight response and bring the body back to a pre-stress level. Dr. Benson describes the relaxation response as a physical state of deep relaxation which engages the other part of our nervous system, the parasympathetic nervous system. Research has shown that regular use of the relaxation response can help any health problem that is caused or exacerbated by chronic stress, such as fibromyalgia, gastrointestinal ailments, insomnia, hypertension, anxiety disorders, and so on. There are many methods to actually elicit the relaxation response. So what he has this meditative practice, which I will go through soon, but he says also visualization, progressive muscle relaxation, energy healing, acupuncture, massage, breathing techniques, prayer, meditation, tai chi, qigong, and yoga. All of these can actually elicit the relaxation response. True relaxation can also be achieved by removing yourself from everyday thought and by choosing a word, sound, phrase, prayer, or by focusing on your breathing. According to Dr. Benson, one of the most valuable things we can do in life is to learn deep relaxation, making an effort to spend some time every day quieting our minds to create inner peace and better health. This is also true with healing. During the energy healing process, the patient is able to relax, quiet their mind, and experience calming effects while the healer does his or her work. And energy healing patients have experienced profound results, not unlike the results seen in Dr. Benson's studies. So he also says this: the relaxation response is a physical state of deep rest that changes the physical and emotional responses to stress, and the opposite of the fight or flight response. So let's look at this relaxation response. So, first of all, this is just an example. I'm sure there are many different, but this is like in his book, this is what his original kind of plan was. So sit quietly in a comfortable position, close your eyes, deeply relax all your muscles, beginning at your feet and progressing up to your face. Breathe through your nose. Become aware of your breathing. As you breathe out, say the word one silently to yourself. The reason he uses this word one because it's neutral, but it can be any sound, but you say it in your mind. Yes, any word which you would induce some kind of relaxation. Continue to do this for 10 to 20 minutes, and when you finish, sit quietly. When distracting thoughts occur, try to ignore them by not dwelling upon them and return to repeating one. Practice the technique once or twice daily, but not within 2 hours after any meal, since the digestive processes seem to interfere with the elicitation of the relaxation process. So, there's mindfulness, there's all kinds of, yoga and meditative practices, breathing, but what he's saying is actually this process, whichever method you find, if you relax your whole system, anyone can do it. This is a way to deal with stress. Now, I'd like to talk about James Doty, and I talked about him last time. He's a neurosurgeon, or at least he was, maybe he's retired now, but he has done many operations on people's brains, life-threatening. And it's very important that you're calm during this. And when he was a boy, he learned some breathing techniques which he could use in his surgery. But then there was one situation where this happened. My hand holding the clip started shaking. Not a slight tremor, but shaking. I couldn't proceed. My hands were shaking so hard that I had to stop for a moment and sit down. And the reason is because the person he was operating on was a friend, a person he knew, and if he got this operation wrong, she wouldn't be able to sing anymore, and she loved singing. And when he started thinking about her, he became nervous because he didn't want to lose her. And so what did he do? I closed my eyes and focused on my breath, inhaling, then exhaling slowly, until I could create enough space in my thoughts that the fear had nothing to hang on to. My fear left me, and I was back to that calm state of certainty about my intention. And then the operation went successfully, and his friend recovered and was able to sing beautifully, So we're all challenged in different ways, by fear. But it's how do we calm our mind? And I suppose it's this kind of mind-body relationship, because our mind is subject over our body. And if we are connected to God and to God's love, and we live, a good life according to good principles, then we can have harmony within ourselves. And then we don't feel separated from others. We don't feel separated from God. We feel God's love and God's presence. So I would like to just read some final words from Father. He says, filling yourself completely with the love of God is the essential condition for uniting your mind and body and becoming the eternal object of God. So love is the opposite of fear. And that's our life quest. If we fill ourselves completely with God's love, that's how we unite our mind and body. And then if people who have ADHD, which I don't see as just something, maybe there is a medical, biological imbalance chemically, but I think from a spiritual viewpoint, whatever problems we have, like in our mind and controlling our mind, God's love and God's truth, if we practice every day to really bring God into our lives, this for me is the most important thing in whichever problem we have, whatever we're afraid of, whatever causes us stress and whatever causes anxiety. So let's remember that. And with that, I'd like to finish. Thank you very much.